purpose of telling one's story? What's the purpose of exploring anything at all? When we tell our stories, do we know anything about what we're really saying? I was looking at Jim Fry's Million Little Pieces, and I was also reading a critique of Running with Scissors that suggested that all autobiographies are purely constructions and they're fictionalized at best. There's an authenticity of emotion. At worst, it's just completely fabricated in order to appeal to a certain audience, pander to the expectations or sort of a legal or moral code. And it makes me realize that one has to think about the reader when one writes autobiography or memoir. Of course, the primary reader is yourself, and especially if you're seeking self-exploration or self-knowledge by means of writing a memoir or by means of telling a story, trying to put meaning or puzzle out, tease out possible interpretations or explanations for things that happened in your life, in your family, in the world around you. So it makes, it's a way to make sense of things, to create order out of chaos. But let's think about the purpose of writing something that's your story, and the three things to keep in mind, which are disarming and self-revelation and seeking common ground. If you actually go ahead and tell what you're talking about straight up front, without, if you go ahead and reveal something about yourself, you tend to disarm your reader. So you allow that reader to put aside certain kind of barriers and to go ahead and try to see where you're coming from. Disarming is one thing. And then the other thing is self-disclosure, self-revelation. Disclosure is important because that's where you see the real person and where that concept of that story starts to come in. It's the way that you can tell the difference between, say, a totally fictionalized archetypal narrative and the real person. It's a disclosure. And if you disclose something, maybe that's how you start to establish common ground with your reader. You start relating that common ground, and the assumptions, the beliefs are sometimes resonant, but if they don't resonate, if you establish some common ground, you give a person a space and a chance to try to go to where you are, to accept or empathize or see things from a different point of view, or kind of adjust perception. I think that writing memoirs and self-disclosure, it's scary, but ultimately worth it. I'm not sure that I'm totally able to self-disclose in the way that I'd like to be able to. However, I know that I like to read that. So memoirs and autobiographies will continue to be interesting to me, and they don't have to be the rich and famous. In fact, I prefer them not to be. What I prefer is a story of a person that may be struggling with the same thing, so I can kind of identify. Hence another good reason for self-disclosure. Hope this is interesting and engaging.